If you haven't heard, new Jamit level just dropped. World is an effect level that I've been working on in the background for a while, and honestly I'm really proud of this level. There's one part in the level that might catch your eye. No, not her, we covered her in the last video. I'm talking about the spiritual successor to Nyan Cat's Revenge by Mindsap. Notice anything interesting? That's right, I totally ripped off this block design from Celeste. This pixel art I made is changing size. He's a witch, let's burn him at the stake, I hear you saying, but I assure you gentlemen, this is 100% cold hard science. Alright, let's scale this down a bit. Here's a part from my old level's Simplest Disco. This might seem like a totally different effect, but both these effects actually work pretty much the same. To understand what I'm talking about, let's take a look at the rotate trigger, or rather the absence of it. You see, this trigger didn't actually exist until the most recent update in this game, although I don't know if I'd call it recent. But that didn't stop creators back in update 2.0. Of course, the obvious solution is just to animate rotation frame by frame, and that's how some creators did it. Here's a part in Sir Punj's level Verity that does exactly that. But there was also another way. Here's a couple levels by Abstract Dark, for example, that use move triggers set to sign in out, creating the illusion of stuff rotating with much less objects. Now I think you can understand that scaling is pretty much in the same situation right now. Just like with rotation, there are two ways to recreate scaling without actually scaling anything. Obviously we could do it frame by frame, but I mean, you saw how smooth this animation is, and do you have any idea how many objects pixel art takes? And so that brings us back to our old friend, the move trigger, and that's where this effect comes into play. If you take 4 separate squares and move them all out to separate corners, it looks like the square's getting bigger. Just reverse that motion and it shrinks again. So in order to do this effect, I just had to use a bunch of move triggers, right? Wrong. You see, that sounds like an absurd amount of math, and if you're anything like me, you'll avoid math like the plague. But what if I told you there's a trigger that will do all the math for you? Introducing the follow trigger. If we place an object and give it a group, place a bunch of objects with a different group and tell group 2 to follow group 1, every movement group 1 makes, group 2 will mimic perfectly, but it doesn't end there. You see, follow triggers have genuinely one of the most useful features in this game. I'm not exaggerating. It's this good old thing called X mod and Y mod. Set these both to 0.1 and now group 2 will move 0.1 times as far as group 1. No math and only one move trigger required. You can even set these to separate values and it still works. Alright, I think that's enough background info. Let's build the actual effect now. This does get a little complicated, so I'll run it by you step by step, and you can still follow along even if you don't quite get how it works. Basically, we're going to be creating a rig, which means that you can just affect one object and the game will affect the rest of them on its own. What you'll want to do is take this tiny pixel object, any solid square will work, but trust me, the art will get really big really fast. Now add this object to a group, copy paste it, give the new object a different group, copy and paste that, move it over one spot, copy and paste that, add it to a new group, copy and paste that, move it over one, copy paste, new group, copy paste, over one, and just keep doing this till it's as many pixels wide as the art you want to make. When you reach the end of your art, be sure to end on the new group step. Okay, you following? Now we just do the same thing, but vertically. Select the entire row of objects and add it to a new group. Copy paste, replace that group with a new one, copy paste, move down, copy paste, new group, copy paste, move down, copy paste, new group, and I think you get the drill by now. Hopefully you're not confused. It's totally valid if you are. If you want to, after the whole square is filled out, you can link each individual pixel together. I did that, but let me tell you, it's like a solid 20 minutes of suffering, so you don't really have to. What you want to do now is set each pixel's color to what you want on the art. Make sure to select all 4 objects for each pixel too, that's why linking them can help. Delete any pixels that should be transparent and, hey, why did you even mention the follow trigger if you're not gonna— oh my god, it's been like a minute. Lucky for you though, that's the next step. Place a new object way off screen and give it its own group, then take note of every group used horizontally and vertically in your art. Try to find whatever group is the center point. Now make 2 rows of follow triggers, one for the vertical axis and one for the horizontal. Make sure the duration on every trigger lasts through whatever scaling you're planning on doing. Set the target group IDs to the corresponding groups on your art and the follow group ID to that one object you placed earlier. Find whatever your center group was and mark the corresponding follow trigger. If you have an even number of pixels, you'll have one center group. If you have an odd number of pixels, you'll have 2. Don't question it. If you have two center groups, just mark both follow triggers. Do this separately for both the horizontal and vertical triggers. Don't worry, we're getting near the end here. Now set the Y mod on the horizontal triggers and the X mod on the vertical ones to 0. We don't have to worry about those, and that'll improve performance. Finally, we're going to be giving different values to each Y mod on the vertical triggers and each X mod on the horizontal ones. I'll use the horizontal ones to show you. If you have one center group, this one will be set to 0. Redundant, I know, but it helps you keep track of what you're doing. If you have two center groups, set the first one to negative 0.05 and the second one to positive 0.05. Now for each trigger before the center, decrease this number by 1, and for each trigger after the center, increase it by 1, and do the same thing for the vertical triggers. And there you go, your rig is all set up. So now that everything's done in the backend, scaling your art is as simple as one move trigger affecting this object. Wow, look at that, almost makes me forget I haven't seen the light of day in weeks. Do keep in mind that with this method, you can only scale your art up to double size, and you can't make it any smaller. You could set it up so that it scales 3 or more times, but I'll let you figure that out on your own if you want to. I'm starting to detect a disturbance in the viewer retention force. If you want to make this rig a little easier to use, you can keep moving this object up and to the right until just before the point your art breaks, and then copy and paste it before hitting stop. That'll mark the limits of how far you can scale, and you can even make a little box around it to help visualize it better. Well, that does it for this video. I never got around to telling you how I actually animated this art. You could do it frame by frame, but that's a lot of objects. I'll give you a hint, it uses pulse triggers and whatever this weird color trigger setup is. It does genuinely get pretty complicated, at least if you want transparency in the mix. But if you want me to do a tutorial on that too, just hit that thumbs up button in a respectful way preferably, and go ahead and let me know in the comments. Guys, I said the thing. Thanks for watching. You can check out World if you haven't already, or you can check out this video for how I made randomized messages in the same level. Have a good one, guys.